Lord Alton of Liverpool.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, after 10 months of war, the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project estimate, based on the available data, that over 12,000 people have been killed. Sudan now has the largest number of internally displaced people globally. Over 8 million have been displaced overall since the conflict began. 17.7 million people face acute food insecurity. 700,000 children are already acutely malnourished. And we are providing £38 million in humanitarian aid to Sudan.
My Lords, isn't it extraordinary that with thousands dead and over 8 million people displaced, as the Noble Lord the Minister has just told us, more than in any other conflict in the world, that the tragedy in Sudan has received such little attention? At one camp in Darfur, one child dies every 2 hours, 700,000 children are acutely malnourished, and widespread atrocities by the Medtis RSF, heirs of the genocide or Janjaweed in Darfur, have been described as textbook ethnic cleansing. Can the Noble Lord the Minister tell us what we've done to establish the role of Wagner and the UAE in supporting the RSF, and the role of the Islamist groups and Iran in supporting the SAF? What the international community is doing to hold to account those responsible for this catastrophic suffering, including the discovery of mass graves, and what hope the UK holds out for both an end to this horrendous war and the restoration of democracy in Sudan.
I thank the Noble Lord for his great experience and interest in this case. So the way I would question what he says, the UK certainly is not ignoring this. We are the pen holder on Sudan at the Security Council and have taken a number of diplomatic initiatives, held events working with IGAD and the Quad to try and make sure that we are moving forward as best we can on diplomatic terms. But in aid, I absolutely agree with the Noble Lord. The most regrettable recent event has been the closure of the Chad border, through which most of our aid went, and the impact of that on people is devastating. We have given £600,000 for the Centre for Information Resilience Sudan Witness Project, which is examining precisely the points he raised, hopefully being able to take forward cases to the International Criminal Court in the future. And we are also taking measures to sanction individuals and organisations that we know are responsible for some of the atrocities he described.
My Lords, the Noble Lord the Minister reminded us that the UK is the pen holder, and he talked about how we were working with allies, and the Noble Lord is absolutely right. Our eyes have been taken off this dreadful situation in Sudan. So can you tell us what exactly we are doing, perhaps as pen holder, to ensure a further resolution at the Security Council so that we can actually get the world to focus once again on this disaster happening in Sudan?
We are taking our role as pen holder extremely seriously. We have held in confidence sessions within the Security Council to try and bring forward a solution. Alongside Norway, we jointly funded the Sudan humanitarian conference that took place in Cairo in November, an event that brought together Sudanese grassroots organisations, NGOs and the international humanitarian system to develop coordination mechanisms to give greater voice to Sudanese organisations in the humanitarian response. And we are involved in a number of different diplomatic efforts, as well as trying to get our aid through this very difficult situation, now with the Chad border closed, but also through South Sudan. We have our post is closed in Khartoum, but it is operating out of Addis. We have staff in Nairobi, where the UN aid programme is being coordinated, and we are taking a lead in trying to get as much help as we can to the people of Sudan, and then hold those who we can internationally for account for the atrocities they're committing in due course.
My Lords,
has the government made of the potential impact of this conflict on regional stability, and why have they not renewed the position of the special representative for Sudan and South Sudan at this key time?
I'm not sure about that last point, and I'll certainly get back to the Noble Lady on that. But she's absolutely right. This has a destabilising effect across the region. I'm shortly to visit South Sudan, where I'll be able to see what impact it is having on that country, which has considerable difficulties, but not on the scale that we're seeing in Darfur and elsewhere in Sudan. And I will absolutely make available to the House all information we can on what we're doing regionally as well as locally.
My Lords, as well as the appalling consequences that were outlined by the noble Lord Alton, is the Minister aware that there are 19 million children in Sudan who've been out of school since April last year? And as well as the 700,000 children suffering malnutrition, which he mentioned, I gather there are another 4 million who are likely to suffer it. Is the Minister aware that the RSF have really captured Sudan's second city, Wad Madani, and, as the noble Lord mentioned, have committed appalling atrocities in Darfur, that the US are sanctioning some of their leaders and are also using every diplomatic pressure on those foreign powers supporting the RSF? So can the Minister elaborate further on what we have done and what we're going to do?
On sanctions, I'd say to my noble friend that asset freezes were applied to 3 commercial entities linked to each party involved in the conflict, the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces. These sanctions, which target entities which the SAF and RSF have used to support their war efforts, are part of our broader efforts to put pressure on parties to reach a sustained and meaningful peace process, allow humanitarian access, and to commit to permanent cessation of hostilities. We don't speculate on further sanctions, but I can tell him that we are keeping this massively, regularly under review, and working with other countries to see if we can stem the flow of arms from countries where we have influence, to make sure that that is not heating up an already very, very dangerous situation.
My Lords, the Archbishop of Khartoum has been forced to leave his home along with his family and many of his people. They're now living in exile in Port Sudan. Church of England dioceses with links to Sudan have tried to transfer funds to support the Archbishop and his people, only to discover that banks are either unwilling or unable to transfer funds to Sudan. What assessment has the government made of the bank's willingness or ability to transfer funds in support of people who are suffering so terribly?
I'm very happy to work with the Right Reverend Prelate and anyone who has a means of getting support to particular groups, such as he suggests. It's not just faith groups, but it's a fracturing of the whole civil society across Sudan, which is seeing precisely the people who we need, first of all, to support those in need in the current situation, and then to rebuild the country in the future. Something as simple in a way as banking is very important, and I'm very happy to look at any suggestions he has about how the government could influence the banking community to continue to support organisations like faith-based ones.
So has his department actually made any assessment of the damage to the infrastructure in Darfur since April 2023? The damage, for example, to water supplies and schools and medical facilities, humanitarian aid storage, that sort of thing?
We have and we are, and there are. It is obviously a continuing conflict. It does appear that the RSF has taken large parts of Khartoum, and so that conflict that part of the conflict is ongoing. But in Darfur, I can't give precise details, but part of the atrocities that are being committed aren't just against people, it is against the infrastructure that supports them, such as the one she lists. And in our package of international support to rebuild Sudan, we need to make sure that we are rebuilding those assets that society will need.
My Lords, what is the...
Last year, the US made the official atrocity determination for Sudan, citing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and ethnic cleansing. Does my noble friend agree that measures and pressures must be applied not only to companies, but to countries that support the RSF through funding, political support, and provision of weapons?
I absolutely agree with my noble friend. and we are working with others to make sure that we are trying to stem the flow of arms and support for these organisations that are flowing through countries that we deal with regularly. We have a situation where civilians trapped in the conflict zones are unable to access the basic services and lack of supplies, and the food crisis that is food security crisis that is increasing day by day is one which has all the hallmarks of ethnic cleansing, and we want to make sure that not only we are functioning internationally on a diplomatic level, but we are also trying to make sure that we are supporting those in country in the best way we can in very difficult circumstances, but preventing other countries from delivering arms into Sudan is a key priority.
My Lords, that concludes oral questions for today.